Do you need a tractor in your wood yard? Let's talk about it. Hello again, friends. Welcome to another edition of Beavertown Outdoors. I'm John. I'm out here at the beautiful Beavertown compound out in the wood yard in the middle of our first snowfall of 2025-26 winter. So, wanted to talk about something that comes up somewhat often is, do you really need a tractor in your wood yard? As we all know, tractors they're a big investment, just like any other big piece of equipment. Anything from, you can get a small one, you can get small little subcompact tractors that run you in the tens of teens on price. Then you start getting up into the compacts and utility tractors, which can go upwards $20, $30, $40,000. And that's quite an investment to make in your wood business. And it's not right for everybody. If you're just, you got a little bit of property, you're not really, you split up, I don't know, a couple of cords a year, you burn one and sell the other two. That's not, I don't know that a tractor would be right for you unless you had other uses for it. And that's one of the great things too, to think about is not just for the business, not just for doing firewood, but for just work around your property in general. If you're like we are out here at the compound, we've got some acreage, and that's a lot to take care of without the proper equipment. So a tractor really helps out with that. Now I'm standing in front of our Branson 2515. For those of you that don't know, Branson was bought out a year or two ago by TYM, and so now they still make these tractors. Their badge is TYM. And they've got some really neat ones coming out. They've made some really neat updates to these that are coming out for the 2026 models, I think. So I was talking to Chase the other day about that over at United Truck Sales. And we're going to maybe go up there and take a look at some of those in another video. But what does a tractor do for you here? So it really depends. The tractor just on its own as they come, which this is how the Branson came, just tractor and a loader. Just having that loader bucket can be immensely helpful. You can either use it to move around the yard. You can use it to move firewood, finished firewood. You can move dirt. You can make changes to your wood yard or to your property with it. They can dig, they can haul, they can do whatever. So that in itself, machines can solve a lot of injury problems. So, but again, you could get away without it. But one of the nice things about a tractor is you're not stuck with just the tractor as it comes, right? So you've got, it comes with, if you buy a tractor with a loader, sometimes you can buy them without a loader, although I don't think anybody recommends that. With just the loader, there's neat features, and you can change out, you got different implements you can change out. Just talking about the front of the tractor, you've got, especially if you have one that has this system, the skid steer quick attach, or for John Deere has John Deere quick attach. They got to be difficult to have their own system, but with that system you can change out to things like a large material bucket. And that large material bucket is just a bigger version of the loader bucket. Loader bucket's not on this one isn't very small, but it's not the size of that big JL Long or JL Landworks material bucket. That material bucket will hold loose. It'll hold a half a face cord. That's a big improvement to what this will haul. You can haul a lot of logs. Basically, at that point, you're only limited to what the loader capacity is of your tractor. And in the case of the Branson here, it's 2,200 pounds. It can actually lift. It can actually lift more than it's easy to get counterweight on the back. There's plenty of videos out there about the need for counterweight. My tires are loaded, and I also have a weight. Have suitcase weights on the back, which I'll show you that in a minute. But other cool features you can get, material buckets and those are cool. But other things you can get for the front, especially if you have this system, which is a third function. So what a third function is, you automatically have two functions with the loader. You have lift and you have curl. But what that third function gives you is another function. It can use hydraulic pressure to power equipment or to move different things, such as a grapple. Now you've seen me have try different things before I had a hydraulic grapple, but having that hydraulic grapple does a lot of great things, like moving logs. Or clearing brush and debris works great. Works much better than manually holding it, manually scooping it up. Or one of the other cool things you can get is, and it doesn't require the third function, is a set of pallet forks. When you think of pallet forks, think of a high-low. How they can pick up pallets, pick up baskets, things like that. But you can also use pallet forks. If you don't have a third function, you can use pallet forks to move logs. Now that's not as easy as it is with the grapple, but it works. You know, it works, and again, it's you start somewhere and move up to things. You know, this wasn't our first tractor. Started out with a Kubota BX, which is a subcompact, basically the size of a large lawn tractor, but has hydraulics and everything. Then we moved up to the TYM 264, which improved our capabilities, but was still a little bit small. So then eventually we worked up to the 2515 Branson, and who knows, someday I might move up again in the world, get a bigger size. One thing I'll tell you as far as size goes, you don't want to size the tractor excessively big, right? Around here, I don't have a need for a 70 horsepower utility tractor that's gigantic. You know, I got to have something small enough to move around, but I want decent power. You know, there's all these different considerations. One thing I'll tell you, most people will tell you, general rule of thumb, and you know, is if you think you know what size tractor you need, go one up from that. That seems to have held true for me. You know, at the time when I bought the BX, it suited the needs of what the property I had, and then we moved out here, started the wood business. That increased the need for a bigger tractor. So the 264 I thought was going to be big enough. It turned out it wasn't. You know, had that for right around 2 years, and then it was too hard on it, right? So if you have a tractor that's too small for the job you're doing, you're putting a lot of wear and tear on it, and it's going to wear out that much quicker versus something the size that's you need or slightly oversized. You know, one of the cool things I would recommend is, you know, go check out a dealership, establish kind of a relationship with them. We all know, those of you that watch my videos, I have a really close relationship with United Truck Sales here in Gladwin, Michigan. You know, but pick your brand or even shop a few of them and talk to them and see what, you know, tell them what you're doing, tell them your needs, and they're going to help you pick the tractor you need and give you your options, right? And most times they're not gonna, you know, they might say, well, this one will work, this might be a little bit big, this might be a little small. It's kind of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. My advice to you is, if you can afford it, if it works for you, go with the higher option, not excessively big, but if they give you an option of this would be big enough, this wouldn't be too big, but it'd be a little bit bigger. Go with that little bit bigger if you can afford it. So back to things that a tractor can use for. One of the other great things about a tractor is the 3-point hitch. So if you're not familiar with, you know, if you didn't we're brought up around farms, you haven't seen, you don't know what a 3-point hitch is. 3-point literally means 3 points that this attaches to. So you've got different equipment that can attach here. Now this is the suitcase weights I was talking about. This is actually a trailer moving hitch that's designed to hold suitcase weights, which that's a suitcase weight. They call it suitcase weight because it's kind of like lifting up suitcase. These are 42-pound weights. They do make 70 and I think even some 100-pound weights. You know, the only downfall to these are pricey compared to, you know, there's other options such as a ballast box, or even people have made some homemade solutions. You know, one of the other cool things that you can put on here is the 3-point carryall, which is basically a big box that you put on the back. You can haul tools, equipment, you can haul firewood with it, you can haul whatever with it. And you can buy them pre-made. Things such as big tool rack. I think Artillion makes one, or that might be who makes the big tool rack, I can't remember. Or you can build your own starting from just a basic frame that you can buy. You can buy that basic frame at your farm stores, your Farm and Home, Tractor Supply, Fleet Farm. That you can even order them online, and you start with that frame, and then you can build the box to what you need. Here's my carryall, and this was a design I got from another YouTube channel. DIY my way. This was basically his design, and it worked really well. But as you can see, it's just a big heavy wood box. I've got some different things like, I've got these posts up here that you can hang like a weed whacker or a ladder or something like that across it. You can fill the box with stuff. And these sides actually, the front and the sides can actually collapse in, so you can actually use it just like a platform or a hauling platform. When you build a carryall like this, it has a lot of weight to it already. And in some situations where I've had to move a lot of heavy stuff, I'll take the suitcase weights off, and I'll actually put the carryall frame on and fill the carryall with something heavy. Whether it's concrete blocks, firewood. This will hold. If you stack up in there, you can hold quite a bit of firewood in here, almost a face cord. Which, if you got oak or something like that, especially if it's wet, the face cord of oak, you're talking, 1,400 pounds? That on top of the couple hundred pounds this weighs, that's a lot of counterweight. That's pretty much how you can get to where you can lift the maximum amount with your loader. Now you have to forgive the mess, and the shelter, our first tube shelter, has seen better days. It actually developed some tears after all these years. I need to figure out a new cover for it. This is usually where I keep my implements. I like to keep them out of the rain, out of the rain and snow as best I can. But you don't have to, right? They're made to be outside. You go to a dealership, they're outside covered in snow. That's nothing new. But the neat thing, again, with a 3-point, you can start getting into other implements, such as a box blade, not a tiller, but a cultivator, which basically tears up the ground, kind of like a tiller with no power to it. There's back blades, things you can use for moving dirt, moving snow. You can start getting into powered equipment, such as our Ironcraft flail mower here, which is great. I mean, I don't have one. A lot of people have seen a brush hog. This kind of does a similar purpose, just in a different fashion. Instead of the big rotary mower out the back, we've got it in a more compact package. I've done a video on that before. Check that out. You can run different powered equipment to do different things. Like if you got some gnarly parts of your property, we get them. We got a back pasture out there that I keep some trails cut for walking, for the deer to walk to, and you can use this to mow down brush and things you wouldn't want to run your lawn tractor, or definitely not a push mower. But you can take down small brush. You can take down tall grass with that. But when you get into powered equipment, there's another thing. To run power equipment on a tractor, you need what's called a PTO, or power takeoff is what PTO stands for. I'm going to lower this down here. So lower down the weight set. So you can see down here, there's a little shaft. And what that does is that runs off the transmission of your tractor, and what that does is that spins the shaft at 540 RPM, or another. I think there's some that have like higher or lower speeds too, but generally 540 RPM on a modern tractor runs most equipment now. But you use that. There's a long shaft that you saw kind of on the front of the flail mower that goes from that to the machinery you're going to run on the back, and it uses the tractor power to run that equipment. One of the things to keep in mind when you're picking a tractor too is what kind of implement are you going to run if you're going to run PTO equipment, because what dictates the size of equipment, besides the size of the tractor, is the horsepower of the tractor, and how much horsepower it gets to the PTO. And that can vary too. If you get a tractor, our Branson is a hydrostatic transmission, easier to drive for doing loader work, easier to drive. Anyone can drive it. If you can drive a car, you can drive this, versus a shuttle shift or manual transmission. Those work very well. I've actually considered it in the past, may in the next one, but those put more horsepower to the PTO and to the ground. The hydrostatic, that it runs on a hydraulic pump, it's kind of like a torque converter in your car. It's going to absorb some of your horsepower before it gets to the back end, whether it's to the wheels or to your PTO. But you want to, if you know you're going to run brush hogs, you're going to run something like a chipper, log splitter, you name it, all kinds of different implements. I can't go into them all here, or tillers, things that are going to need a lot of horsepower. That may dictate that while you may stay with a frame size this size, you may want to go up to a higher horsepower just so that you can run that equipment more efficiently. People have commented before on my video on the Ironcraft flail mower that in tall grass it bogs the tractor down and I got to go slow, and that is purely because of the type of tractor it is, being the hydrostatic, and only being this tractor is only rated at 25 horsepower. If it was 35, 40 horsepower, probably wouldn't have that issue. But again, we make do with what. I don't brush hog all the time. I'm not always on the flail mower all the time, so I can slow down. And yeah, that takes longer, takes more time, takes more fuel than it would with perhaps the bigger horsepower tractor. It's not what I do all the time. This suits my needs for most of the time, which is hauling firewood. I have the loader capacity, I have all that. I don't do a lot of ground engagement. But if you do, consider the higher horsepower for that reason. So what are some, besides the price, obviously the investment, what would be some downfalls of a tractor? So, obviously fuel for you is just food, right? You can, if you're doing manual labor, you can, as long as you can eat, get enough rest, you can keep going. Tractor requires fuel. I think very few tractors anymore, unless they're a lawn tractor, are gasoline powered. It's a diesel fuel tractor. You got to be able to store some diesel fuel. Some places that have a lot of diesel equipment, they'll have their own large tank with a pump, kind of like their little mini gas station. Me, this is the only diesel equipment besides my truck. I just fill it with cans. You can get some really good quality fuel cans now. I do recommend getting the jerry can type. They are a little more cumbersome than, say, your regular plastic can. They're not, the handles are a little more plain, but they seem to work. And there's a lot of at least anecdotal evidence out there about the metal cans are less likely to get moisture in them, less likely to contaminate the fuel. They don't degrade for the most part as fast as a plastic one does. Although I've had plastic cans that have lasted forever. So I do like them. The other nice thing about the jerry can is it's a smaller, more compact package. They're taller, but they're skinny, so you can line up a whole bunch of them. So check out those. You can get them from like Vevor and a couple other places. You don't have to spend an arm and a leg on them. But yeah, so you're going to need diesel fuel, and it's another piece of equipment to maintain. So changing the oil on this isn't so bad, right? It's kind of like changing oil on a small car. If you can change oil on the car, you can change oil on the tractor. So you got that maintenance, and you change the oil every couple hundred hours, the engine oil and the filter. One bit of maintenance that can be a little bit difficult for some is you have to change the transmission fluid in these pretty regularly, or the hydraulic fluid. For this tractor, the same hydraulic tank with the hydro transmission, the same hydraulic fluid runs the transmission and also runs all the hydraulic all the hydraulic components. So that can there's a lot of it there, right? So this tractor holds, is it 10 gallons? I'm trying to remember. But anyway, they can hold anywhere from 5 gallons to 20, 30 gallons, I'm sure, depending on the size. And if, again, with the hydrostatic, you hold a lot more, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but so there's ongoing maintenance you need to do. You can't just neglect these and expect them to last forever. They won't. Other things you have to do there, especially with a loader, there are a lot of grease fittings. So, on this one, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fittings on each side of the loader. So that's 16 grease fittings you got to hit. Highly recommend electric grease gun, especially if you got this. And then, like, I've got other things too, as well as with the processor and everything. There's a lot of grease fittings you got to hit. It's a lot easier. You get that electric grease gun with the lock and lube. It's a lot easier to use. So, but yeah, so there's maintenance ongoing with it. But again, to me, that's kind of a small price to pay for the versatility you get with the tractor. But again, I can't sit here and say it's right for everyone. And should you go into a pile of debt right out the gate for a tractor? Not necessarily. I would think if you're going to take a loan out, you don't have the cash for a tractor, you're going to take a loan out on something. A tractor is one that's worthwhile doing. The reason I say that is because one nice thing about tractors, they hold their value. They're not like a car that you lose, 20% of the value of it the minute you drive it off the lot. Tractors they lose a little bit of value, but they hold it really well. When we traded in the TYM, with the 264 on the Branson here, the 2515, I was amazed at how much value that retained, right? So that tractor had that for a couple of years. That tractor new at the time wasn't actually that expensive. I want to say it was like $14,000. Might be a little bit more. But there was only a loss of a couple $1,000, and I had a couple 100 hours on it. It had been well used, so really they don't lose their value. So if you start out with this, it's not going to hurt so much to trade up to the next one. But something that holds value is worth taking a loan on. You can take a longer loan. I don't recommend it for everybody, but you can get 7, 8, 10-year loans on these things, depending on the size and the cost of them. And it's going to hold that value. You're not going to. Odds are, within a year or so, you're definitely not going to be underwater in it. Can't guarantee that, but that helps when you're taking out a loan. So if you're going to go in debt for any piece of equipment, I would say the tractor is that. You going into debt to straight out the gate to buy a processor, things like that, or a real high-end splitter. You don't need those right out the gate. They definitely help improve things. They improve your efficiency. They make it easier. They improve your business, but those can be things to aspire to. One nice thing with the tractor, the amount of efficiency this adds does get you to where you're profitable, to where you're making money quicker. And with that'll help you get to the point where you can buy, go from the box store splitter to the commercial, the Wolfridge, the Easton Made, things like that. Those are things you can. This will give you enough efficiency, if you use it right, that you'll make money that much faster, and you have that money to reinvest. So, I'm not Dave Ramsey. I'm no financial genius. I just think those are just reasons I give for why a tractor would be the one thing you could really justify getting a loan for. So this doesn't go over everything in the world of tractors. There's a lot to them, but that's why, to me, this tractor's been a great investment. Just having a tractor in general is a great investment if you're starting or you're starting to build a firewood business. They are an amazing tool. They're going to make your life easier. They're going to make you more profitable, or at least they'll contribute to that. So I hope this helps. If you want to check out tractors, you want to know about TAYM. If you're in northern Michigan, talk to my friends at United Truck Sales, Oak and Gladwin. They're a great bunch of people that they'll be more than happy to help you with it. But there's also other great dealers for other brands, Kubota, John Deere, you name it. Yanmar's a good one. In this area, we've got, I think for Yanmar, you've got Jeans and Coleman, Jeans Equipment and Coleman. You've got John Deere. We have Hudson in this area. Also, I think Tri-City Equipment down in Saginaw. Kubota, there's Capital Equipment out in Clare. Just a lot of great things. But shop around. Find something that works for you, and go ahead and give it a shot, and you'll be amazed at how much it'll build your business for you. I know it'll make your life easier, both in your business and just in general in life. So, hope this helps, guys. It's gonna do it for me today. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. Feel free to share. But until next time, everyone, from all of us here at the beautiful Beavertown Compound and Beavertown Outdoors, take care of each other, be good, stay safe, and I'm out.